Hey everybody! Before I begin this commentary companion, just want to remind you that Blade is currently available to watch on the following platforms that I'm going to bring over here so you can listen to the commentary companion while watching Blade on those streaming platforms, or you can even listen to the audio commentary of my voice while you're watching Blade on DVD if you own the DVD or Blu-ray. That's where it's available to watch. But anyway, thank you for listening to the Commentary Companion and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to Commentary Companions. I'm your host, Tony the Happy Nerd, and today we'll be doing a commentary on the 1998 movie Blade, starring Wesley Snipes. You know, Blade came at a very interesting time in the 90s. You see, back in the 90s, you know, it's like superhero movies were in a very difficult slate. I mean, yeah, you had successful indie films like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Mask, both coincidentally distributed by Blade's distributor, New Line Cinema. But back then, superhero movies were often considered box office poison for every surprise success like Ninja Turtles, especially with financial and critical failures such as Batman and Robin and Spawn. Also, the 90s were a bad time for Marvel Entertainment. I mean, yeah, they had successful cartoons like X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man the Animated Series, but in the movie business, it was miss after miss with the embarrassing Captain America movie released in 1990. And, Marvel was on the verge of bankruptcy. They were so desperate to keep their company afloat that they had to sell the rights to various studios, such as Fox and other studios. And, Blade was one of the assets that they sold to New Line Cinema to stay afloat. This was also an interesting period for New Line Cinema because they were transitioning from being a mini-major indie company to being something big with the success of Lord of the Rings. And, Blade was kind of that preview because it was like 3 years before the first Lord of the Rings film would be released. And this was also right after New Line Cinema merged with Time Warner. No, sorry, it was after Ted Turner had purchased New Line Cinema, and then Turner had merged with Warner Brothers, and so New Line Cinema became a sister company for Warner Brothers. Also, I think the first red flag for this guy should have been the meat store. That should have been your first red flag. Of course, Blade wasn't the only Marvel character that New Line Cinema had owned the rights to at the time. I'll explain later. That should have been your next red flag. Yeah, so Blade was the ultimate gamble for Marvel Comics. Because, it was either succeed or fail. And if they failed, we wouldn't have X-Men and we wouldn't have Spider-Man. And Blade showed that, superhero movies like Blade with an R rating can indeed work. And you know that this film is totally different from most modern Marvel films when it doesn't even feature the classic Marvel logo. That is so jarring, if you know what I mean. But yeah, you'll get to hear my thoughts about all of this as we continue watching this film. I apologize for the flashing lights. It's a rave. What were you expecting? I always wanted to go to one. Probably how I would act at a rave. Yes, Stan Lee was involved, despite the fact that he didn't create the character, but he's Marvel. And yes, it makes sense that Wesley Snipes would be a producer because, well, this was kind of a passion project for him. Now, Marv Wolfman, I usually, whenever see the name Marv Wolfman, I usually think of his work on Teen Titans and other DC projects, but he did start out at Marvel. And yeah, this is actually David S. Goyer's second superhero screenplay. The first that he did was actually a TV movie known as Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., starring David Hasselhoff. But it didn't turn out so well, and he claims that his script was mauled alive, and maybe it's better that I don't watch that. And there's your next red flag. Blood sprinklers, because you ain't at an ordinary rave, my friend. You're at a vampire rave. I have to admit, the idea of blood sprinklers at a rave for vampires is actually kind of a creative idea. Even if it wasn't affiliated with Blade, that's definitely a creative idea. And I'm surprised it hadn't been explored. Oh yeah, your lunch. And so we have the man, the myth, the legend, the day-walking vampire hunter. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Blade, the vampire hunter, played by Wesley Snipes himself. Now, Blade the Vampire Hunter made his official comic book debut in Tomb of Dracula number 10, released back in 1973, written by Marv Wolfman and illustrated by Gene Colan. Tomb of Dracula was basically a comic book series devoted to, you guessed it, Count Dracula, the literary character. Because, well, by the 1970s, Dracula had entered the public domain, so Marvel putting him in their universe seemed like fair game. But Dracula is often an opposing foe for characters such as Spider-Man and also Blade. So, yeah, Dracula was a real classic character. It makes sense that a character like Blade the Vampire Hunter would be introduced in a Dracula comic book. And let me tell you, the Blade that debuted in 1973, well, the movie Blade doesn't look anything like him as far as costume goes. Because let me tell you, it is colorful. It is the most disco 1970s appearance I've ever seen. But the black leather aesthetic really does work for this movie. It's kind of what the film needed. What else? But yeah, Blade wasn't the only character that Wesley Snipes wanted to play. You see, in the 90s, Wesley Snipes, who was by then a bona fide movie star, actually wanted to star as Black Panther, and he even wrote his own screenplay for the film. But it never came through with that. But yeah, I mean, Wesley Snipes is Blade to a lot of people in the 90s. Kaboom. I love that little body language there. Yeah, I do believe he's cursing him in the ancient vampire language. Now, of course, Blade wasn't the only character that New Line Cinema owned the rights to as far as Marvel characters go, if you know what I mean. You see, other Marvel characters that New Line Cinema had owned the rights to were Iron Man, because 20th Century Fox gave the rights to Iron Man to New Line. And they also owned the rights to Deadpool, and ironically, New Line would give the folks at New Line would give the rights to Deadpool to Fox, and they also owned the rights to the Venom character. But New Line ended up selling the rights to Venom to Sony Pictures, but appropriately enough, because he's affiliated with Spider-Man, so it makes sense. Now, Karen is one of the few characters in this movie that was actually made specifically for the movie and did not originate in the comics. I figured you should all know that. But yeah, it's interesting to know. It's like New Line had a team of writers to work on these Marvel characters, and David S. Goyer was one of those writers who was tasked with writing scripts for these Marvel characters. And it's interesting to imagine an Iron Man movie distributed by New Line Cinema. But maybe it's for the better that New Line eventually gave the rights to Iron Man back to Marvel. But yeah, David S. Goyer also wrote a prototype script for Venom. The fact that this is an action, this is like it was used with makeup is so amazing. I like that that there are both practical effects and CG effects in this. It's really cool, and I'll tell you who Greg Canham is in a moment. Eventually. Okay, yeah, this actually made me jump out of my seat a little when I watched that, if you know what I mean. I mean, it. There's definitely a reason. If James Agent East did a kill count for this, there's a reason Quinn wouldn't be have a kill graphic. Well, he punched a a burnt vampire. Hey, look, talk about casting an arm and a leg. And that lady is gonna need therapy for the rest of her life. Ah, nice throw. Seems these police officers went to the stormtrooper school for shooting. Ouch! I hope I never get my arm dislocated. That would suck. Ah, yes, Abraham Whistler. Now, I should point out that Abraham Whistler actually was not an original comic book character. You see, Whistler was created specifically for the movie, but Whistler was based off of another mentor figure that mentored Blade. Now, yeah, he was actually based off of. He was based off of Jamal Afari, who appeared in the comics as Blade's mentor. Jamal Afari made his comic book debut in Marvel Preview number 3, released in 1975. Abraham Whistler was named after, Abraham Van Helsing from the Dracula books. And, well, back when David S. Goyer's original script for Blade had yet to be turned into a movie, Whistler made his official on screen debut as a supporting character on Spider Man the Animated Series in Blade the Vampire Hunter's first appearance in media. Yeah, it's like, if I recall, get another media. Oops. Yeah, but I do believe that Spider-Man the Animated Series was Blade's first official on-screen appearance. Yeah, it's like Spider-Man the Animated Series was Blade's first official appearance in other media before the Wesley Snipes movie. And there you have your main villain, Deacon Frost. Now, Deacon Frost is an interesting case, for you see, Frost made his official comic book debut in Tomb of Dracula, number 13, and he plays a big part in Blade's origins. But the Frost we see in this movie deviates a little bit from the Deacon Frost we see in the movie. You see, the Deacon Frost in the comic books is an older, elegant looking gentleman. A very enforcing antagonist for someone like Blade, but totally different from the movie version we see. But Stephen Dorff's portrayal of Frost was actually influential enough to where when Frost appeared in the Ultimate Marvel series, and I mean the Ultimate Marvel from the 2000s, not the mid 2020s that's currently happening. Ultimate Marvel 2000s, Deacon Frost in that version appeared to be younger, probably based on his appearance in the Blade films. But yeah, Frost plays a big role in Blade's origins, if you know what I mean. You'll find out as you watch further into the movie. Now, in the comics, the way Frost became a vampire was, he was allegedly a scientist looking for the key to immortality. Like you do. And for one of his experiments, he kidnapped a young woman in order to inject his victim with the blood of a recently killed vampire. Things went to shit, and Frost accidentally injected the vampire blood himself, and it resulted in Frost becoming a vampire, and with the ability to create vampiric clones of anyone he bites. Interesting origin story for a comic book, if you know what I mean. That's not good. Something tells me that that sword must have been practical. It's a trap! Sorry, I couldn't resist saying that. I do have to wonder why Whistler, why Amar Jafari wasn't Blade's mentor in the film instead of Whistler, but I guess that's was a decision on David S. Goyer's part. Roll credits, ding! Sorry, every time I watch CinemaSins and they say roll credits after the title card, I can't resist saying roll credits as well. Now, originally, Blade was depicted as a human who was immune to vampires, but Blade was retroactively established to be a dampire following his adaptation in Spider Man, the animated series, in the Blade films. And in case you're wondering what a dampire is pretty much a, a creature who is the result of a union between a vampire and a human, if that makes sense. Not gonna lie, even I thought that it was Romanian or Russian. Well, definitely not Russian. Ooh, slapped him like Chris Rock. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Now, Blade was filmed in Los Angeles and Boyle Heights. And when I say Los Angeles, I mean downtown Los Angeles. And the interior of the hospital in the beginning of the film was in Boyle Heights as well. Now you know. Ooh, damn tattoos on the back of them necks sure do look sus, don't they? Before we get started, does anyone want to back out now? That's a reference to Captain America Winter Soldier. Could it be that they were just a red herring? Yeah, that's definitely creepy, to be fair. Yeah, in vampire mythology, familiars are basically underlings to vampires. The most famous being Renfield from the Dracula books. It's hilarious how all these extras are so nonchalant about Blade interrogating an officer. It's like it's just another Tuesday for them until Blade starts pew pewing with a gun. Doing a commentary companion for this feels perfectly appropriate on Black History Month. The fact that I'm doing this in February during Black History Month is definitely a coincidence, but it feels like an appropriate coincidence, if you know what I mean. Now, the movie's music composer is also a trumpeter and has pretty much he's very well known in the jazz community. I figured that would be an interesting fact to know. Yeah, she did. Vampire valet. Yeah, that's alliterative. Oh yeah, typical badass line. Well, sure. It's in my fist. No tricks now. Still, that is an interesting hideaway. It's kind of funny that Frost owns a building with a waterfall, and the waterfall has rubber ducks on it. It's kind of funny. Who knew that Frost liked rubber duckies? I'm not going to spoil who the lady is in bed if this is your first time watching Blade. Because, I'm not the kind of asshole that would spoil something. Because, hey, I'm watching it with you, if you catch my drift. Hey, look at that. He managed to translate it all. And he's a very hairy man, Deacon. Yeah, looks like he's relieved of duty as a familiar. Thank goodness smell-o-vision isn't a thing, am I right? Yep, and that is Pearl. And it's actually amazing that Pearl was played through practical makeup effects. And I guess I could talk about the person responsible for the makeup effects, Greg Canham. Now, Greg is an icon in the makeup department, and he has actually managed to win 5 Academy Awards for Best Makeup. Now, he Blade isn't the only vampire movie that that Greg Canham had actually worked on. Yep. Movies that Canham has won an Oscar for, as far as best makeup goes, were for Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's another vampire film he did. And he also won an Oscar for Mrs. Doubtfire. He was honored with a Technical Achievement Award. He won Best Makeup for The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. And he won Best Makeup and Hairstyling for Vice. Vice stars Christian Bale as Dick Cheney. But yeah, he also has done makeup for Thriller and The Lost Boys and Exorcist 3. And he did uncredited makeup work for Dick Tracy. And he also did makeup for Star Trek 6 and Hook and Alien 3. And was an uncredited makeup artist for Batman Returns and for Hoffa. And he did special makeup for The Mask. I mean, and Titanic. And this guy is a legend as far as makeup effects go. And I think Blade really benefits from Greg Canham's makeup effects. Oof, that's gruesome. Toasty! I bet he's chuckling on the inside. That's one way to bring down the house. Oh, it's a trap! Now, when New World Pictures bought the rights to Marvel Comics, they were set to make a Mexico set western about Blade, which would have starred Richard Roundtree as Blade. Eventually, Marvel Studios started to develop the film in early 1992, and rapper LL Cool J was interested in playing the role, but eventually Blade was set up with New Line Cinema with David S. Goyer writing the script. He had written the script in 1994 and completed it in 1996. But yeah, after failing to get a Black Panther film in production back in 1996, Wesley Snipes signed on to star as Blade. And he even produced the company through it because he had his own company known as Amun Ra Films. And he worked with the writers to invest the story with elements of classic tragedy to heighten the character's emotional drama. Other actors that were considered for Blade for the 98 film before Wesley Snipes were Denzel Washington and Lawrence Fishburne, but to Goyer, Snipes was always the perfect choice for Blade. And before before Chris Christopherson was cast as Whistler, John Voight was also considered for the role of Whistler. And here comes the whistling cavalry. Cavalry? Calvary? I think it's cavalry. Now, Blade would eventually turn into a daywalker vampire in the comics after he was bitten by Morbius in Peter Parker Spider-Man #8, which was published in 1999. And the film portrayal of Blade was updated for a 1990s audience, and the comics character was subsequently modified to match. And well, Deacon Frost was in the comics was quite literally a church deacon. You got a train to catch. Oof. Yikes. Well, this is close to becoming a Karen kebab. Quinn kebab. Losing his hand again. Ah, well, this is a surprising fact. Stan Lee originally had a cameo in Blade, but the cameo was ultimately cut from the film. I do wonder what it would have been like. Apparently, he played one of the cops that came into the Blood Club during the aftermath and discovered Quinn's body on fire. It's kind of cool knowing that the guy playing Quinn in this movie would also play Harvey Bullock in the Gotham series. And so we get our first ever kill through the sunlight. Toasty! Yep, it's because of Nosferatu, the movie, that vampires are easily killed by the sun. But I guess you can say frost bites. Yeah, I think those were his adult vampire teeth. I'm melting! I'm melting! Oh, what a world! What a world! I mean, yeah, that kill is so cool. And I guess I have enough time to talk about the film's CG effects team that worked on Blade. I mean, it's kind of hit or miss on occasion, but the visual effects company that worked on the first Blade was Flat Earth Productions. Now, they got their start doing special effects for TV shows such as Xena Warrior Princess and Hercules The Incredible Journey. And eventually they transitioned to doing visual effects and computer effects for movies. And aside from Blade, other films that they worked on for visual effects were Mortal Kombat Annihilation, yeesh, and Dungeons and Dragons, also yeesh. Especially since Mortal Kombat Annihilation and Dungeons and Dragons both aren't good. And I'm talking about, when I say Dungeons and Dragons, I mean the 2001 movie and not the recent Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves. I mean, Honor Among Thieves looks fucking great compared to the 2001 Dungeons and Dragons movie. That's just my opinion. Not only is it energetic, you could say that the reaction is explosive. Smart idea, to be fair. I guess I could talk about the film's director, Stephen Norrington. As many people know, Stephen Norrington was only Blade was one of his best known films, but he was very limited in directing, and Norrington has was notorious for being difficult to work with. The film's screenwriter David S. Goyer said that while making Blade, Stephen Norrington began taunting him about how tattoos aren't tough, and he then began flaunting his various piercings and started deriding Goyer. And Norrington was also pretty much tyrannical on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. After working on League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, it was the last film he ever directed. Before he was a director, Stephen Norrington was also a special effects artist. He was a sculptor and makeup artist and worked under Dick Smith, Rick Baker, and the late Stan Winston on a number of well-known movies that relied on such practical effects. And of course, Blade was could have been another opportunity for him to direct multiple projects. At one point, Stephen Norrington was attached to direct Ghost Rider, because for Dimension Films, which is kind of funny. You see, yeah, Dimension Films used to own the rights to the Ghost Rider franchise, and it feels funny because at the time, Dimension Films' owner, Miramax Films, well, should I say former owner, Miramax Films was owned by Disney, and this was before Disney purchased Marvel Entertainment, so it's kind of hilarious that at one point Dimension Films owned the rights to Ghost Rider, but it was in 2001 when Norrington was offered to direct Ghost Rider, but eventually those plans fell through, and Sony Pictures, aka Columbia Pictures, eventually acquired the rights to Ghost Rider, and the film would be made in 2007, starring Nicolas Cage. And of course, Ghost Rider wasn't the only Marvel movie that Stephen Norrington had an opportunity to direct. He was also originally attached to direct an adaptation of Shang-Chi long before the character made his on-screen debut in the 2021 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and DreamWorks was even going to distribute the Shang-Chi movie, but those plans eventually fell through, and eventually in December 2018, Shang-Chi got announced, and we got the 2021 film. And personally, I do like the 2021 film starring Simu Liu. But it's an interesting what could have been, if you catch my drift. But yeah, that's what Stephen Norrington's like. A very polarizing kind of guy. I mean, I'm sure he's pretty good when it comes to special effects. Speak of the devil, or in this case, the deacon, and the frost appears. La magra. Oop, Jinx, you owe me a soda. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, this actually is a very sad scene. Not to ruin it, but yeah, that'll last. The one thing I like about this movie is that it doesn't try to be a traditional superhero movie like Superman. It definitely tries to be its own kind of comic book movie, and it really does succeed in that endeavor. It's definitely that different thing that Marvel needed to stay afloat, and this was a big gamble for them, especially since Blade wasn't as popular as Spider Man or Batman. And it definitely proved a lot of things that I'll probably explain when the credits start rolling. At least in my opinion. Now, there's a lot about Deacon Frost that has changed for the film, but his lust for power is definitely something that is very faithful to the comics in a way. To be fair, I wouldn't know because I haven't really read many of the Blade comics. I guess I should. It would make better sense. Entering on a freaking motorcycle. I mean, that's definitely one way to make an entrance. You don't give a fuck. And so you get to see Karen's quote unquote cure in action. Like I said, explosive results. Yeah, I wonder if that bed is even comfortable when it closes and all that. So, for those who don't know, Blade's real name is Eric Brooks, but he also goes by the name of Frank Blade. Subtle. So, yeah, the woman in the bed is Blade's mother, Tara Vanessa Cross Brooks. Now, Vanessa made her comic book debut in the same issue as Deacon Frost, Tomb of Dracula, number 13. And yeah, Frost was the one responsible for, turning Blade into a human born vampire. And he's also responsible for turning Blade's mom into an evil vampire. Also, a variation of the first appearance of Blade's mother was coincidentally in Spider-Man the Animated Series, and she was actually voiced by but in the Spider-Man cartoon, her name was Miriam, and Miriam was voiced by Nichelle Nichols, who might know greatly for playing Uhura on Star Trek the Animated Series. But yeah, This version of Blade's mother in the movie is definitely faithful since she's used against Blade. And she's evil. I have to say that the interior design of this temple is definitely creative. That must have taken months of work. Bravo. Man, he was fucking with him. Wrong serum, bud. Should have discarded them properly, if you catch my drift. Of course, Curtis isn't the only character that Tim Guinea played. Also played United States Air Force Major Allen in the first two Iron Man films, and he played Clay Wilson in The Punisher. I didn't even know that was him. Talk about a surprise. Yeah, so I'm looking at this machination that's causing Blade to bleed, and I'm wondering how is it causing Blade to bleed? Is the machination cutting his wrists open to spill the blood? I think that's the only theory that I can really think of because they don't really explain how he lets out his blood, but I can assume that the cuffs cut his wrists. That's my only plausible theory behind all this. I mean, I could be right. I could be wrong. I wish I could ask David S. Goyer this. I don't even know where he's bleeding from. I think the turning to ash and dust is kind of growing on me. Skelly ash to dust, then. Maybe they should have made it a little bit more difficult to release the vampire. I gotta say, the guys playing Frost and Quinn do such a great job in this. They really do add levity. Wanna play hickeys? Also, I do like that in this movie they don't really make Blade and Karen like a romantic couple. It's a very it's definitely different from most superhero movies that require a romantic interest. And somehow this doesn't kill Karen. Doink! Yeah, I apologize for the flashing lights for those who suffer from epilepsy. I feel a little woozy here. That trump card doesn't work on Blade anymore. Like you said, Mummy's dead. Oh my god. Those skeletons are so cartoonish. Are they stop motion? Like, I could never take those flying skeletons seriously. But it's the one thing I totally remember from this when watching it on TV. Yeah, like, they're so cartoonish. I mean, it's a creative idea. Could have been done better, though. But then again, this is 1998 special effects. Serves you right. There is no Tikkun, there is only Soul. Boom! Try regenerating from that. Yeah, okay. The film really does shine in the action department. Was that a cross shot? Okay, so he said Frost 3 times in this action sequence. I checked. I counted. Enjoy it. So yeah, Karen technically uses that garlic mace 2 times. Come at me, bro. Could you imagine if he went for the head? It would probably be the same outcome of him growing it back and reattaching it to himself. Man, he's so shocked he can't even say what the fuck audibly. Damn. Bitch, please. Wasn't aiming for you. Prepare for a multiple dose. For those who are wondering what the hell that means, it was just apparently some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill is was something that Wesley Snipes said in a meeting, and it refers to someone doing something the hard way. It was apparently an ad lib, and apparently either Stephen Norrington or David Goyer loved it, and they insisted it be a line in the movie, and so some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill ended up becoming an iconic line, and probably most associated with Blade. I mean, even I like to quote it sometimes. I don't get to. Now, long before Jared Leto said it was Morbin time in the live action 2021 Morbius movie, Michael Morbius was originally going to make his live action debut in this movie, Blade. It was pretty much meant as an alternate ending to kind of as a tease, maybe a new antagonist, and this version of Morbius was played by the film's director, Stephen Norrington. At least, yeah, this was supposed to be the Morbius that would have appeared in the film, but it never went through, and the scene was cut. And that's the last we ever see of Karen in this movie. And, you know, this is my second time watching Blade from beginning to end, and I've seen bits and pieces of it on TV, and I always came to the climax. I always was always watching the climax of the film with Frost getting killed and Blade in Moscow. Yeah, I always remember this scene. Looks like there's another bloodbath in Moscow. Famous last words. And that was Blade. Now, like I said in my review of Deadpool and Wolverine, I said that a lot of Marvel movies wouldn't have been possible without the success of Blade. I mean, Blade was the surprise hit. It may have gotten mixed reviews from critics, and yeah, it's definitely dated, but modern Marvel movies wouldn't have been possible without Blade. I mean, Blade was definitely a one in a million kind of film. I mean, you would think it would be a film like Captain America at the time would be more successful, but Blade is very different. I mean, you have a black actor in the lead, and this is a superhero movie with an R rating. Most superhero movies usually aim for a PG-13 rating, which is a much more marketable rating, so that more younger audiences can come into the film and watch it. And, but Blade was like, screw that. And it's like, with the success of Blade, it made films like the first Deadpool movie and the first Black Panther movie possible. And in fact, if the film hadn't been a financial success, I mean, films like X-Men and Spider-Man both wouldn't have been possible to have been released, and there wouldn't be a Marvel Cinematic Universe with Iron Man and the Avengers. In fact, I'm sure that would have been it, and Marvel probably would have faded into obscurity and would have ceased to exist. Who knows who would have bought it? And so Blade is the runaway hit that made the Marvel Cinematic Universe possible, and other films like Deadpool and Wolverine and Black Panther possible. But yeah, that was my commentary for Blade. Hope you enjoyed watching it. I had a lot of fun giving my thoughts about the film. Next, I'll be doing X-Men, the first one, released in 2000, as that was a film that proceeded after Blade. Thank you for listening to my commentary companion. Be sure to like and subscribe. Don't have a good day. Have a great day.